Bigger deals is where you guys make money. You want to make $20,000 a deal, or you want to go make $300,000, $400,000? Like,
the last thing you want to do is burn relationships with deal funders and just have them analyze deals for you. Really get your reps in, and then at that point, present it to the deal funder. If you show up unprepared, it's just going to be a bad look.
Like, you start pulling out a $300,000, $400,000 loan,
a lot of risk,
hard money, and it is a lot of risk. If it's a bank, they're going to come after everything.
It's more scalable if what you're doing works for not grandma. You know what I mean? Grandma.
Can I have $20,000? I'll pay you back when this sells.
It's not scalable at all because it only works for grandma or grandpa or mom and dad.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today's topic, we're talking about getting cheaper money for your land investing business. I'm here with Anthony and my brother Ron here to talk about getting cheaper money. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. Happy to be here. Happy to do our first episode with us three together. It's going to be fun. It's a good topic too because Anthony does so much of our deal funding stuff. So cheaper money is a big topic for sure.
You hear that a lot, Anthony? Cheaper money?
Yes, people always want cheaper money. The cheaper money you get, the more money you're going to make. So yeah, it's a very big topic right now.
And we're going to focus on talking about cheaper money in this episode, and then we're going to talk about pros and cons of cheaper money, traditional deal funding, and alternatives as well. This is going to be a deal funding,
money.
Episode.
How to pay for your land.
Yeah, how do you pay for your land? And there's plenty. Let's just start by anyone who's new here. There's plenty of money in the communities. Like the number one question we get and it's not hard to solve the question is how do I pay for my deals? You want to talk about that, Anthony?
Yeah, and this is probably the biggest question for people that aren't involved in real estate. This is their first business venture. Is how am I able to even afford, let's say a 5-acre parcel buy for $50,000, right? It's I don't have $50,000. What do I do? The really nice thing with us and our community is we have vetted investors to where you can partner with them, do joint venture agreements. But the really nice thing is it really is such a low barrier to entry because all you need to do is focus on marketing. And if it's a good deal, then you'll definitely be able to get deal funding. There's plenty of deal funders within our community. There's plenty of deal funders within the land space, and there's plenty of opportunity. So we teach you how to do that, how you're able to acquire it. But yeah, it's a very simple, straightforward process. If the deal looks good, present it to a deal funder. They'll present the rates, the terms, joint venture agreement, and there really is no risk on you. And I'm sure we'll jump into that in a second.
And that's the beautiful thing of it. Like Anthony said, there's no risk on you. We can talk about the risk since we're here now, and you brought it up. There's no credit checks, no loans or banks involved. They don't need to underwrite anything. The traditional deal funding, what Anthony's talking about, is where you partner with an investor and you split the profits on the back end in some sort of profit split percentage, whatever you guys come up with. But that's how it works. There's just no risk involved. It's easy and it's quick. And that's some of the benefits of it. It's completely risk-free.
Yeah, for sure. And you just need, like Anthony said really well, if you don't have a ton of money to your name to buy $100,000 deal, whatever it is, which is a ton of money, it's a lot of money. But if you can find good deals, if you can find motivated sellers and get them to agree to selling, then you're going to be fine in this business. You will find money on the back end, whether it's hard money, deal funding money, whatever the money situation is, you need to be able to find good deals. That's the name of the business. We've talked about it a lot recently, Dan. Sales, you need to be able to know how to acquire land, get sellers to agree to it.
Yeah, but more importantly, you need to know what's a good deal and what's not a good deal. Because if you're bringing a bunch of bad deals to invest, you're not going to get deal funding on a bad deal, right, Anthony?
Yeah, and there's people too, they'll try to take advantage and they'll just send you a bunch of deals just to look at it and see if you're able to fund it. Just be cognizant of that. The last thing you want to do is burn relationships with deal funders and just have them analyze deals for you. Really get your reps in, feel comfortable and confident, and then at that point, present it to the deal funder. Because if you show up unprepared, it's just going to be a bad look.
Yeah, and what are some of the benefits of deal funding in your mind?
Well, the biggest thing that we had just mentioned was there's essentially no risk. People always ask me after I explain traditional deal funding, what's the catch? Well, the catch is you just need to sell it.
Yeah.
Sell it within 6 months. That's normally a standard contract. But in terms of the benefits of deal funding is that, again, there's no risk. All you have to do is find a good deal, present it to a deal funder. And then at that point, especially with us and what we provide a very hands-on service. We have a private Discord thread. We communicate about the deal. We're all involved in there, including our operations manager, Amy, that does a lot of the title work and communication. So really is no risk. And I would say the biggest benefit of this is it really helps you scale, and you could even focus on bigger deals as well too, to where you're not going to have to worry about that capital. You already have relationships in place. You understand deal funders and what their buy boxes are, and it just alleviates so much stress that you could have, and it really takes that burden off your plate. So there's tons of benefits to it.
And the no risk thing, I think, is a lot higher value than perceived value. Like people that hear the risk that are listening, you know, especially if you're an aggressive entrepreneur and want to grow, that's not a huge deal to them. It was never a big deal to me. Like I hear risk, I see cheaper money. I don't care about the risk. Let's go make money. I know what it's going to sell for. But the reality is there are unpredictable things that will happen, especially at first when you don't know what you're doing. Risk is a really, really, you know, it can hurt you in the long term. Along with that, like you said, the scalability of deal funding, Ron.
Yeah, and that's what our brother Mike has done. Like he's built his entire business off of deal funding, essentially, or using deal funding. He hasn't used, I think he just started buying some deals, and he's a couple years in, just started buying deals for himself, and he's made hundreds of thousands of dollars last year. He did. And that just is a prime example of him never using a dime. So he's able to put money in his pocket. He's making $60,000, $70,000 on some of these deals after deal funding splits. So it's 100% so scalable, because you can fuel the business with money, essentially. If you're buying deals yourself, you're probably using some of that marketing money. So it's definitely more scalable without doubt. And if you have a hard money loan, which we'll get into, you have the risk of defaulting on that or something, and then you need to have that backup money where you can pay off the bank or something like that, where you're not fully, where you can pay them off and something worse doesn't happen.
Exactly, and that's where the risk comes in. When you start, we'll talk about hard money loans soon. Is there anything else you guys want to add to deal funding, or you feel like we covered it before we get into hard money?
I feel like we covered most. I think just one big emphasis to do is when you work with deal funding partners, especially when you're starting off.
Relationships.
Yes, relationships, and you get a second set of eyes on the parcel as well too. So as you're, you know, a little bit newer and you're not sure, you can send it to a deal funder. I mean, that takes off even more risk, because if someone's funding it that's an experienced land investor, then, you know, it's like, okay, cool, there's no risk associated with this. It's most likely a good deal. And then also too, how we talked about scalability is then you can, again, really target those bigger deals, because you're not going to have to put your money forward. So you can get even more profit rather than the simple, you know, buy for 10, sell for 20, which are still phenomenal, but it just, scalability is huge.
Deal funding in itself gets cheaper over time too. Like it's not like your rates, the first deal you do with a deal funder with us are not going to be the same rates that you're going to do on your 10th deal or something like that. As you get experience, as we become more hands-off and truly just money partners, our money gets cheaper. Deal funders' money gets cheaper, and you still have the no risk, honestly.
Yeah, and it's like I said, or like we said before, just that you can buy $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 deals with deal funding. It's harder to raise money from a private investor on a hard money loan for those size of deals, and it's also greater risk. Like you start pulling out a $300,000, $400,000 loan,
it's a lot of risk.
Hard money, and it is a lot of risk. I mean, they are going to come after your bank. Like if it's a bank, they're going to come after everything, and that's where it really comes in. And that's one of our focuses. Like bigger deals is where you guys make money. Yes, buying for 10, selling for 25, buying for 20, selling for 40, whatever it works. Do you want to make $20,000 a deal, or you want to go make $300,000, $400,000? Like it's so the potential is there. The subdivides, the improvement values. Like go after bigger deals and use deal funding when you get them.
We fund those deals for relationships, essentially. Like we're not making money when we're funding a deal, buy for 10,000, sell for 25,000. Like it's a ton of work and effort,
paperwork,
and everything like
due diligence.
That. Yeah, but we want you guys, that next deal being buy for 100, sell for 2, everything like that, and having those relationships, building those relationships up, and then going after those $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 deals, those project deals that have $500,000 of profit in them, are where you can scale, and and the deal funder, you're going to be making money for the investor as well.
Absolutely. And going to that, we touched a little bit. Let's go to hard money. And by hard money, let's just talk about, these are loans essentially. So we're calling them hard money, but essentially it's loans, and you can attach them to the land. There's tons of different ways to structure them. People even get off. Justin yesterday said he got a HELOC out for some of his deals.
For his mail, he said.
He got it for his mail. That's a little different than what we're talking about. But I know people have gotten HELOCs for And HELOCs are good loans because they're so cheap because they're attached to your house, but it is still risky.
Yeah, I feel like Frank was one maybe.
Yeah, he was.
Frank was one who used the HELOC, and you can pull money out of your house essentially. There's different ways. That is in hard money in itself. Yeah,
it is, and it's a good source of hard money because you're leveraging your house, which so it hurts the equity, but you're using it in a very low interest way because it's based on your house.
And it doesn't attach it to when you sell the land or anything like that. You can pay it off whenever, obviously.
A lot of them are. You can get a revolving.
Yeah.
So you just pull it out and put it back in, like a line of credit. You can get a line of credit based on your HELOC.
For sure.
We've never done that personally, so I'm not that versed in it, but I know people who have. But I want to talk about raising money. So going to family, friends, investors, building up compiling a list of people who have money, who want to put it in the 15 to 20% annualized loans.
Yep. I think that is like a next step. I think after you get deal and doing that on some smaller deals, you can really help your margins for sure outside of deal funding. But then you do have the risk, like you said. But yeah, if you don't want friends and family and them combining and each putting in $1,000, $2,000, $4,000. Like you want someone who can fund a $20,000 deal for you. Like that's what your starting point should be. Like can someone fund a 15?
I would hope it would be more than that. But
I'm saying like if
they should have ability to go more.
Yeah, ability for sure. But you need to find those partners. And typically it's not banks. Like banks don't like this stuff. It can be private people.
Yeah.
And relationships like that.
Start with the smaller, less risky deals, 15,000, but you got to make sure they got $250,000 to put into deals, or else you're going to build a relationship up and they don't have the money to fund your deal. So you want to make sure there's some potential, at least 150 or so. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And just one thing to touch on that is just make sure you know what you're doing, especially if you're going to be bringing on friends and family. The last thing you want to do is pass on, let's say, a deal that we pass on in other deal funders. Like, oh, I know my grandma's going to, want to. You
want to be experienced with this method in general,
right? So again, like you were saying, though, you really want to find people that have the capital to do so, build relationships with them, because if not, you're just going to be wasting your time. But yeah, really have a good network of like anywhere from like 5. I would say 5 as a minimum of people to have in your network, and then just grow it from there. But no, I completely agree with what you're saying.
Give them good deals too. Don't start like anything. The relationships with deal funding and this is the same exact concept. You want a good relationship so they scale up with you, and that's why I'm saying start with a $15,000 deal, work your way up to $75,000. The problem with hard money and friends and family and investors in general, it's harder to scale to get a 500,000. It just is. Like a lot of them have max numbers, like 75 or 100 grand, things like that. And a lot of them just don't have the money to buy a $400,000, $500,000 loan. Plus, that is super risky. I like these on, the smaller deals for sure, but you want to be able to give them 4 or 5 deals as well. So like if maybe you have a $30,000 deal, a $40,000 deal, $10,000 deal, having these people you can just give those deals to that are lower risk deals, and then you're doing some traditional deal funding, and you're just kind of mixing and then you're paying for some yourself as well. And those 3 methods create a nice business, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely needs to be a combination. You jump out of the gates and you're doing hard money with friends and family. You're going to either lose money, hurt relationships. There's more risk that goes into it than just money when you're doing that out of the gates. So just be careful. But you need to, and we've talked about it with so many coaching students, Dan, over the last month, 2 months, is like there's a point in your business where you need to look for cheaper money. You need hard money options for some of your deals, because the issue, and Mike is an example, the issue happens when you build up some money. You're like, okay, I can fund these deals. Then you're funding all the deals, and then you have no money. So the next step is like, instead of using deal funding, if that's too expensive or whatever, is
or
using,
the margins aren't there too.
100% is using, you can do it with tighter deals for sure. And you have experience, so you try, your gut and the instinct and what it's going to sell for, everything like that. But that's kind of the next step in growing your business, and you still have money in your pocket because you're not putting money into the deal.
Yeah. And I want to talk about the structure on these, because there's a lot of different ways to structure hard money loans. And we talked about how it's a loan to you essentially. So what you can do, you can get a mortgage or a promissory note on your land when you're buying it. And the lender pretty much wires in the total amount for closing. You're still on the title, so you have a mortgage against you. It's not as complicated as it sounds. But what I would start at to compile a list, like Anthony was saying, of 5 people, like just write down 20 people, call them, ask them who they know would be interested. So pitch them on what you do, and instead of trying to get them necessarily, ask them who they know, who they think might be interested in this type of loan, who wants to make cash on cash annualized return. And then you need to, when you're making these calls, have some sort of plan on what you want to offer them too. So like if I wanted to give them 18% annualized loan, or let's just say 20% to make it simple, because that's 5% a quarter, you're going to want to do so you'll tell them you're doing a 20% annualized loan. So that pretty much means every single month they make 1 point something percent, but you want to give them a minimum usually of, you know, maybe 3 months is pretty standard, 4 months. Always spice it up at first to give them a little more, and you can pull back over time, but give them 3-month minimum. So they're making 5% on their loan.
If it sells within 2 days.
If it sells within 2 days. So you're giving them something that might sell within a month. You're giving them, it might sell within a month, and then they get some extra percentage and they get that money. They're happy and they give it right back to you. And then what you can do to spice it up more if you need to, you can give them a point of interest at closing on the sell side. So, hey, like an origination fee. So you're paying 1% to them no matter what happens, just to close the deal and do everything.
Yeah, and you lock this up like Anthony talked about. Like, you need to know what you're doing. You lock this up with a mortgage and a note, like, or a deed of trust and a note. Like, you need this official. This needs to be recorded stuff so they have protection. And it helps. It's more scalable if what you're doing works for not grandma. You know what I mean? Like, if you can go to a family friend or a friend of a friend of a friend and it works for them, that's awesome. But if you just do it for grandma, can I have $20,000? I'll pay you back when this sells X dollars, whatever. It's not scalable at all because it only works for grandma or grandpa or mom and dad, and it's not scalable.
Yeah, and to cut you off real quick, and you put that mortgage and promissory note when you're pitching them to, this is backed by a mortgage and promissory note.
Yes.
It's backed by an asset that's worth $100,000 that I'm buying for $40,000. This is a very secure loan.
And you also got to decide if there's a maturity on it. So if there's a maturity, like a deadline on this, like if it doesn't sell within a year, is that the maturity date?
And you
or do you just keep on going? Like, there needs to be, or you pay them interest only. So that's what you need to decide when you're kind of pitching this, what works best for them. You want to give them your track record. Like, I sell properties, in the last 6 months, I've sold properties on average in 120
You're
days.
selling them. You're giving them a presentation, put it all together.
This is what your money would turn into.
Yes, exactly.
And I think laying that out for them, if you do 20% annualized, they can't get better money.
Are they paying monthly?
I mean, that's another thing that you
They
can
shouldn't
talk about. No, you shouldn't.
You should have this so you give them the complete interest when the property sells. So when the property sells or when the contract expires, you give them 100% of the interest plus the principal. So you pay them out, and you get the promissory note and everything closed out.
Yeah.
If you're paying monthly, it's just a whole nother operation. You can, if you get a really good rate and you get a monthly and you're a tenured business, you've been in business 3, 4, 5 years, doing a lot of deals, you want a $200,000 monthly loan just to throw it and land. You can do that. I do not recommend that for what we're talking about here, though.
Yeah, then you lose cash flow, everything like that. Typically with the monthly payments, there are monthly payments, and we've been pitched monthly payments where it's interest only.
Yes.
So that's not as bad because it's very, very small payments where you're just paying the interest, and then when it matures, you'll pay off the rest.
The principal, yeah.
The principal. So there's so many different ways to structure this. We could talk about it for hours.
The key is, like we talked with Justin, just be creative with how you do things. Think outside the box. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And just out of this, the two biggest things is structure, making sure you have it set up to where it's actually going to fit your business, to where you'll get good profit from it, and being able to pitch it correctly. You know, have a good track record, because like you guys said, I mean, if you're not being able to present it well, and if you don't have the right systems and processes in place to where you're actually going to get a good deal from it based off how you structure it, no, it wouldn't make any sense. So no, I completely agree with what you guys said, and I don't really have too much of that to add on top of it. I think you guys nailed it.
Don't dive full force into this. Try it 1 or 2 times. You don't want to dive full force and have the wrong structure, like Anthony's saying, or not file it properly. You just want to test it out like anything. Don't dive in full force. If you're new, don't do this either. It really can just, I don't want anyone get a HELOC or something where it's safe and it's based on the asset, not the land that you've looked at, you've been doing for 1 month or so. It's just a little risky. You can, but I wouldn't recommend it at first. Do a couple of deals so you have something to pitch to investors. If you have a shit ton of money and you can use yourself, we're talking about, deal funding in this. Deal funding can be you paying for yourself.
Yep.
If you have a shit ton of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting there, 50,000, you have a deal, buy for 30, sell for 70, 80 grand, buy it yourself and then get deal funding on the next one. Like, just be creative, use funds. The good thing about deal funding with us is you partner with Anthony, you partner with our team, we do the due diligence. It's just like Anthony said at the beginning, it's another set of eyes to confirm. Like, if we're willing to buy that and put our money into it with what we know, this is our business. And it just reassures you that everything's good, and we give you a nice contract and everything's safe. We'll walk you through the closing process. It's really good for that as well. And then along with that, you guys get bigger deals, bring them as well, because that's a way, like, deal funding is the way you scale with big deals.
100%.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so.
As always, guys, thank you for joining. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. It really helps drive our mission forward. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks, guys.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.